Welcome, everyone. Yeah, a big virtual warm smile to everyone. And Kefah's bringing up our slides. And I think they're coming soon. I have to press OK. Now, do you guys see that yet? It says that you're sharing screen, Kefah, but it isn't like...
I don't know if there's a little bit of lag.
There's lag. That's perfect.
Okay.
So, do you mind going back? Yes, perfect. Okay. So I was going to share a little backstory, 2 seconds, which is that last summer, I think it was August, Kefah and I came together to explore the human nature of writing more generally. And we were thinking specifically about AI and writing and the experience of writing. Today, we wanted to sort of focus our attention a little bit more deeply on what poetry does as a specific kind of writing and how it's connected to our experience as human beings in meeting the world. So that's what our conversation is today, and we're truly hoping it will be a conversation. So let's sort of start. There's a slide coming up that has a little bit of an agenda, and you can take a peek at that. We'll do a check-in with a metaphor invitation. So, and then afterwards, we're going to start with a poem. We'll start with a poet and a beautiful poem. Then we're just going to talk amongst ourselves. And we were thinking about the idea of a pause. And so we'll sort of expand on that and have conversation with you about that. And then we wanted to talk a little bit about algorithmic logic and the issue of relationality in the world. We wanted to ask a few more open questions for conversation once again, and then we'll close with another poem and a few resources. So in the next slide, we have the invocation. Oh, no, first we have our metaphor invitation. So in the chat, it's like Chatterfall, so everyone can use the chat to share if they feel compelled. But we want to know how your heart is today. And there's 2 examples on the screen of using a metaphor or a simile. So one is an image of several closed doors, but one door is like kind of illuminated because it's unlocked. And the metaphor is my heart is like, or my heart is an unlocked door. And then another is a picture of 3 young girl children jumping on a trampoline. And it's my heart, it's a simile. My heart feels like a child on a trampoline. So please think of a metaphor for where you're at right now. How is your heart today? And share it with us in the metaphor, and I'll be happy to read out your responses, or you can just unmute and share if you'd like to do it that way. Welcome, Shanali. I see you there too, and I'm happy you're with us. Maya says, my heart is like the moon, full of craters, but still glowing. You know, those craters are deep lakes. Um, no worries, Shanali. Emily says, my heart is a flower in bloom. That's beautiful. Everybody seems okay. Well, the 2 of you seem good. I'm so happy to hear that. Let's see. Maha has a lot. My heart is like when you have this spider break in the glass of a car's windshield. Oh my goodness. Whew, because of a convo I just had with my mom lamenting a really bad thing happening in Egypt that perpetuates injustice. The spider glass breakage is breaking, but it's holding itself together. But now vision is unclear and you can't drive through that. Wow. Thank you so much for so much in one metaphor. It was really a lot. I'm kind of imagining what it might be. We'll talk later, Maha, but Kefah was telling me about some things happening in Egypt that I didn't know about, and it might be those things. And it's interesting where we get our news and where we don't get our news. That was part of our thinking about that a few days ago. Ava says her heart feels like a blank canvas, open to learning. Wonderful. Jenny's, my heart is a net, pulled in a lot of directions, but holding things together. That sounds, I can relate to that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you later, Maha. Rachel says, my heart is buzzing, a buzzing bee flying in many directions. Hopefully there's pollen that you're gathering. Something sweet to turn into something nourishing. David says, my heart is a bicycle ride through the Green Mountains in Vermont. And I think that that's literal because that's where he's located and he's a lucky duck. I love that, David. Yasser says, my heart is like a sea, sometimes calm, sometimes worried and anxious. Shifting always. Shanali, my heart is like a bouncing ball. Thank you, guys. Maybe we'll move to the next slide. And we'll listen to the wonderful poet, Naomi Shihab Nye, a Palestinian American poet. And this is like an invocation, just a poem to start our time together.
I don't know why it's giving me a hard time. Do you want me to open it as a link?
Sure. I mean, whatever you think. I mean, we could try in a different way, and we can just listen if the video is if it's an internet issue. But let's just.
Yeah,
I think it might just
weird.
be slow. I think it's just lag.
Okay. Let me pause it here and try to play it directly from the start.
Right. We might not be able to see, but we can listen, I think, which is, oh, here we go. Good.
Wandering around the Albuquerque airport terminal, after learning my flight had been delayed 4 hours, I heard an announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of gate A4 understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate A4 was my own gate. I went there. An older woman in full traditional Palestinian embroidered dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing. "Help," said the flight agent. "Talk to her. What is her problem? We told her the flight was going to be late, and she did this." I stooped to put my arm around the woman and spoke haltingly. "Shu dawa? Shu bidik habibti? Stand shway, min fadlik, shu bitsawi?" The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought the flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for major medical treatment the next day. I said, "No, we're fine. You'll get there, just late. Who is picking you up? Let's call him." We called her son. I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mother till we got on the plane. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons, just for the fun of it. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic and found out, of course they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took up 2 hours. She was laughing a lot by then, telling of her life, patting my knee, answering questions. She had pulled a sack of homemade mamoul cookies, little powdered sugar crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts, from her bag, and was offering them to all the women at the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined one. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the mom from California, the lovely woman from Laredo. We were all covered with the same powdered sugar and smiling. There's no better cookie. And then the airline broke out free apple juice from huge coolers, and 2 little girls from our flight ran around serving it, and they were covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing with green furry leaves. Such an old country, traveling tradition. Always carry a plant. Always stay rooted to somewhere. And I looked around that gate of late and weary ones and thought, this is the world I want to live in. The shared world. Not a single person in that gate, once the crying of confusion stopped, seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This can still happen anywhere. Not everything is lost.
Kefah, you want to sort of unmute and, move forward? I hope you liked that poem. We felt like it sort of held the spirit of what we can generate when we're open-hearted. So I think we skipped a slide. I'm not sure what happened there. There was yeah, there we go. I was inviting you to unmute and sort of open up the question if you'd like, Kefah. Maybe.
I was having such a hard time unmuting because it's in like full screen mode. And I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
I'm
I
I'm
know.
like
I'm always telling my
trying to
students,
get
I'm working with Zoom apparatus right now. Just hold on. I say it a lot.
because it's like when I'm in full screen, it doesn't show me the bar. And so
Mhm.
I'm like trying to make, I'm so sorry.
No, don't
Um,
worry.
I do think that's a great poem to begin with. I was just thinking you guys must see me trying to grapple with this.
Actually, you
Um,
can't really tell. Just
um,
so you seem very calm in a good way.
Thank you. I don't think I feel like that inside. I think that's a beautiful poem because I feel like, and I think we talked about this, you and I, when like the simple gestures of good morning and things like that are kind of being lost. And I think that poem is a good reminder of the connections made when you stop to help someone or to see someone needs help. So I love that poem, especially because of all the Arabic words also infused in it. So I do think that's a great way to start. Um, and more it feels like in order to push the notion of human writing or the importance of the humanity of our writing, it's a conscious choice, just like that pause we talked about. So in a world of instant answers, I still write, I still choose to write because I'm making that conscious effort not to click a button and get to an answer. I'm choosing to take a pause, think through my emotions, think through my thoughts. Even though the probability of an answer is there, it's a conscious effort to say, I need to know and feel this on my humanity level. Did we want to invite people to talk about this?
Yeah, I thought, just to get everyone sort of thinking about poetry, in a world of instant answers, of course, the ghost or the scepter behind all this in our heads is ChatGPT and all the access to, natural language processing, software. In a world of instant answers, I still choose to write because we thought we'd invite you to throw that into the chat. Take a moment to hear your answers to that question and throw it into the chat. I still choose to write because, Yasser, you want to say something? Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Well, yeah, it's just I when I listened to that poem, because I listened to it before, it reminded me of a lot of things. I've done it in an Arab American literature class, and I still remember the discussions we had in class about it, and yeah, the moment that we stopped to help, that was the sort of theme from the class discussion that we've had, but also the idea that we take the time to just help out not just because we want to appear, that yeah, I'm helping or something, but we do it from our own hearts, that yeah, I have the full intention to help, and I have the full intention to talk to people, to be open and all that. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
I like how you're highlighting the idea of awareness of intentionality, like what you intend. I think that is very much a part of the experience of writing, and specifically writing poetry. Um, let's see, it says, in a world of instant answers, I still choose to write because, for me, because the instant answers never ever represent me, my history, my feelings, my thought process. Yes, that was one thing that we definitely want to talk about today. And I love that you're bringing that to the foreground. Right away, it's this question of the worlds within us, the universes within us, and a sense of justice and representation that we want to sort of overcome through the act of writing. Does anyone else want to share a response to I still choose to write because? Let's see. Jenny's saying, because the deliberate engagement with language and ideas and other people is what writing is to me, not an answer, an instant or not. Absolutely. I love that so much. Um, because words, Shanali, because words have always been my sanctuary and my olive branch. Oh, it's so, I love the sacredness of the word sanctuary. And then the olive branch is so beautiful because it's so much associated with a reaching towards another, or towards understanding, or some kind of gesture that overcomes a boundary. I love that. Thank you. David, I'm just scrolling. Because other media and AI tools are about getting information into my head, but poetry and writing are about getting things out of my head. Wow, that one is really powerful. Exactly. And Rachel, she says that her thinking and response is similar to Maha's. Because I still choose to write because I feel a drive to create something original that only I can write. Wonderful. So such an amazing place to start our conversation. Thank you to everyone who, oh, and Emily just put in, and Yasmin's here too. Let me just read these quickly because my writing reflects, Yasmin is saying, because my writing reflects my own thoughts and feelings. Instant answers don't. And Emily says, because I still choose to write because it connects my mind and my heart and keeps me grounded in a world with too much access. That's very interesting about the too much access part of it. Thank you for that response too, both of you. You want to move forward the slide, Kiva?
Well, I just wanted to add, if I could, my own.
Yeah, of course.
Well, because whenever we used to do the why I write prompt, I used to always my instant answer, or the answer that always felt like right here at the top of my heart and soul, was I write to breathe. Um, and then when I thought of this question, I don't want the breath that I breathe to be edited or capitalized by something other than me. When I pause to breathe, the inhalation and exhalation should be something that's intimate to me. And if I allow a machine to give me an answer, what part of my inhalation or exhalation is lost, right? When you inhale, there's a process that happens. And similarly, a process when you exhale. And there's a whole world in between those. And I want to carry those breaths like intimate to me and to my lived experience. Can you hear me?
Yes, it was beautiful.
Okay.
I'm just,
Like, did I mute?
no. I'm just listening to you and taking in the beauty of it. I think it's a keen sense of what's important inside of us, our internal lives. So maybe the next question, it might be a little bit like a follow-up to this. Can you,
They
yeah,
seem connected now.
yeah, exactly.
And
In a
I
time,
think that was the intention.
yes. In a time where AI can generate sentences, summaries, even poetry, what remains uniquely ours in the writing process? We're inviting you to try to pin down, in thinking about the act of writing, what comes from you within the experience of writing, in whatever words come to mind. You can throw it in the chat or just unmute, whatever you might be comfortable with. So Emily says that voice and humanity are what is uniquely ours. Rachel's saying compassion. That's a beautiful distinction. You know, compassion is such an important part of being human. Maha opens that, expands that to say feelings, and not all of our feelings are compassionate ones, but it's like that root of the emotional life we live. But then also this leads to relationality, like our will to move meaning across a boundary, to connect with others. Maya says feelings, voice, which is something we'll pause and think about a little bit later. But yes, a sense that what is uniquely ours is connected to the concept of voice. And no, let's see, David says our connection with others. So again, that relationality piece. Ava says, no two people create the same connections with a specific piece of writing. Oh, this is so important. I think all of those differences are what keep it unique. So it's the act of reading is just as important, active as the act of writing. And I'm really, really grateful that you highlighted that important dynamism in writing, is that it's meant to be read, and that when we read, we're also transforming it internally. You want to add anything, Kisha?
I do because I was thinking I'm always thinking. I feel like I'm just in constant thinking. Yes
Yeah.
to all the answers. Like I feel like everyone contributed so beautifully. For me, it's the longing for something beyond my lived condition or beyond societal's conditions at the moment. The longing part for me remains so uniquely human. Longing for something that I can't touch or taste right now, but I can imagine.
Yeah. And I think sometimes I think writing brings me to places I haven't been. And that's just a more simple way of saying that. But the word longing, it's about desire, it's about yearning. But it's also a time thing, right? Because you can go in time back to memory and
Mm.
sort of revisit experience too. And writing helps us access these things. Shanali says everything writing is not about the words on a page or screen. It's about the attempt, the essay. Um, of course, that's the French means to try, l'essai. To try and express our world, the process of trying to capture a spiritual experience in incomplete words. It's this gap between representation and reality, and it's sort of moving as close as we can to a representation that fills out the colors of what's real in us. Of course, knowing it's never going to be complete. So it's the act of the impossible in a way. Just adding Ava saying, I love how you included the attempt. Exactly. It's like the reaching, the yearning, you know, the what was your word, Kifa? There was it yearning, or you said something like that? Longing. Yeah. And then I added desire to that. Yeah, the incomplete is so much a part of what writing really is when you experience it profoundly. Yeah, let's keep going. The next slide. Thank you, everyone, for you know, just opening this up so beautifully in your commentary. I love it. Yeah. Ava just said, or even just approaching the page with certain confidence and courage to open yourself. Yeah. It's like we know that that blank page in some ways is discovery. That can happen. It's hope. So when I was meeting in the Yemeni coffee shop on Saturday with my beloved Kifa, we were just listening to each other, and she said, "I write to pause." And so I wanted to make that a quotable quote in our time in this session together. And I wanted to invite you to throw some mirror up to that idea. I write to pause. What might that mean to you? I'll just start by unmuting and saying that for me, the pause is like what Kifa was saying about the breath. There's the inhaling of the world, and then there's the exhaling of our metabolizing it or internalizing it and processing. So there's something about reflection that happens in the midst of that pause, and words and writing and the poetic especially helps to process. Let me see what you are all saying. When I'm not writing, I have a million thoughts rushing through my brain and it exhausts me. Yeah, ditto. We know this. Writing them down is a pause from the noise and helps me relax. Yeah. So it's interesting that we're talking about the body a lot. To reflect, to refine, and capture the feelings that we aren't ready to let go of. When I don't write, it's like holding my breath for a super long time and it feels suffocated. Me too. Rachel says, I write to pause might mean that the act of writing allows a person to process what came before, to slows down, to consider. Yeah, yeah. So many good things here, guys. Emily, to me, this means to essentially stop and smell the roses. We move very quickly in our daily lives that we forget there are beautiful things that happen every day. On the other end of that, life gets hectic. Writing is a way to step back and process. Yasser says, writing is basically my thinking process through which I also get rid of the stress and discomfort. Wow. That's really amazing. Shanali says, writing had become a double-edged sword for me. I write for work and then it's one thing. But when I write for me, writing is to untangle, to clarify, to notice, and honestly, often to cry. How kindred. How beautiful. Yeah. Ava says, I think in a world where everything is at our fingertips, pausing helps us focus on one observation, a feeling, a thought, instead of moving on. I really like that kind of like focus aspect of it, the one that you're talking about, a kind of reverse of the world keeps turning. Yeah, it reminds us that we cannot stop for a few minutes. And then Maha says, when I write for work, I do not consider it writing except teaching, because because I keep that personal.
It's the deliberate, right? The deliberate choice, because we're going back to that word that I thought of in the beginning, the deliberate choice to say, I'm not going to be so automated. I'm going to absorb the world and what's happening to me. Someone said the blank canvas, right? Where it's courage, but and courage is a beautiful thing, and there's so many ways to interpret courage. But courage also encapsulates the unraveling of fear, right? When you set that pen to paper, that empty canvas, you may know what you're going to approach, but really that discovery that we keep going back to is unearthing so much of our humanity. And part of that is the empathy for me too. When I sit and write, and I'm saying I don't have to produce right now, I don't have to be optimized and do things in a speedy way, and I'm allowing that exhale, parts of my humanity are activated because I can feel again. Because so much of our lived experience is like, okay, the finished deadline, do this by the end of the day, do that by the end of the week. But the pause reminds me to care about myself, to care about the world that's happening, and almost mourn, the mourn the part of me that is so automated. Want to move to the next slide?
Yes, that was beautiful. That was a beautiful last point, that the pause is related to care. I love that.
Absolutely. Because I think also we're living in a world where apathy is becoming very accepted. And it's almost like a trending thing if you teach teens, and you guys all know, um, and even interact with teens, it's not cool to feel. Um, but to remind ourselves that it's necessary to feel.
Mhm. Yeah. So there's an image here of a stump, a tree stump, and and it's old, meaning it's been weathered for some time. So there's cracks in it and lichen and moss. But I think we wanted to just emphasize this idea that poetry has the power to slow us down. To the act of writing it, the act of reading it, as Ava pointed out earlier as well. It disrupts automation and deficiency. It asks us to feel before we react. Um, and I think that we're very curious about stories that are full of code switching, speaking in varying languages of experience. What about the stories that come from ancestral knowledge? What about marginalized voices, marginalized dialects, or just a painful nuance in and of itself? Somehow, when we turn towards the poetic and the expressive, and we put pen to paper or finger to keyboard or whatever it might be, we're pausing and allowing for the possibility of those things to be intertwined and braided together in ways that manifest knowledge. I think we can move forward. This one, maybe you take, Kefah.
Okay. Um,
Oh, and
uh,
before she starts speaking, I'll just say that there's an image of two seabirds on the screen, and they're fighting in the air um, right above the vast ocean.
uh, in the world of automation, everything is, I mean, and that's what is kind of bragged about when it comes to AI, to optimize for clarity and cohesion. Um, but our human lived experience doesn't always arrive at clarity or optimization in a linear fashion. Neither does our growth. In order for that to happen, we have to allow for the stutters, the spirals, the whispers that are infused in our poetic pauses. When we are thinking about emotion, we're thinking, what's next? Okay, I've clicked this button, I have the answer. Where do I go next? Poetry says stop, feel this moment, really become grounded in it, and then decide what way you want to go next. Whereas we're searching for an answer, but we know that we may never arrive at the answer, and that is inherently part of being human. We may never get the answers we're searching for, but doesn't mean the search is not worthwhile. And so there's that friction between the writing process when you get stuck on a certain line, or you have the writer's block that we all hate, but that makes us also look beneath all the layers of our humanity and question, why am I struggling? What's going on? And really grounding ourselves in our entire lived experience. To take that away from the writing process is muting and making flat our existence as well.
Yes. I'm mindful that we don't have much time. So I'm thinking we can get to the part where we do a little few minutes of writing, but I just want to describe this very interesting image on the screen. It's of a young female writer who is sitting with a book and a pen in her hand, but her hair is sort of spread upward. And in the silhouette of her hair, it's actually a blue, like nighttime sky, a universe with planets and constellations. And so the question on the screen, when was the last time writing helped you make sense of something deeply complex, hard for you to cope with, and or inherently human, like grief or love or transition or joy? This just points to practices that we might be able to weave through our daily lives that honor our humanity in a way, even if it's just for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I'm thinking specifically about the practice of journaling. And next Monday, Kefah and I are having a session about poetic practices that can be like woven into your life. So we'll get into like the actionable ways of healing and meeting the world in our human presence that way. But let's move on to the next slide, because I think the next slide has an invitation to write for a few minutes. So we thought to ourselves, what might be a fun way to just get some poetic impulse out of us? So we invite each of you to just grab a piece of paper or open up a blank screen or whatever you like to do when you write. This is low stakes just for you, but we decided that we would invite you to write about the first bite of something you ate or drank recently, or maybe you can just like go to the kitchen and take a bite of something and then try to write about what you're experiencing. So if you can pop something in your mouth for a few seconds and then write, that would be beautiful. Describe, explore. Or you can like scale back to something you've just recently experienced that might work that way in terms of thinking about taste. Another invitation that you might take up is to describe a distinct smell that you're experiencing either right now or that you can access now in some way, or perhaps a smell from the wells of your memory that's very distinct and that you could explore through words. So let's put on a timer for 3.5 minutes, and I'm just going to let everyone play around with that. And then maybe we can share a little bit if we feel compelled, what comes to the surface when we take a moment. So I'm putting on the timer and we'll be quiet for that bit of time. So I hope you had a minute to pause and pull something up from inside you. Does anyone want to share, or you could throw it into the chat or just read it aloud?
I almost want to say mine first.
Okay, perfect.
Because it happened very like coincidentally. There's an Arabic dish called mulukhiyah, which is jute leaves. Like it's a plant that you make with either beef broth or chicken broth. It's something I know how to make, but in the hurriedness of wanting to get dinner on time, when it's finely chopped and dried, it resembles mint, and I accidentally made mint instead of that. And then my mother's look when she first, like, as we first took that spoon, and she looked at me and she said, "See, because you're not paying attention." So it was like, and I thought of you, Mia, at that moment, because it's also that ancestral knowledge, um, and that moment where, like, I knew I messed up from that, like, that tiny, like, bit of soup in my mouth. But it was also that connection with my mom of always being like, this part is also important, like knowing how to make cultural dishes and things like that. So that struggle and that friction between the cultural me and like all the other parts of me that exist are all like in that bite. Um,
That's
so,
amazing.
but yeah,
Talk
because my
about
mom's
like
like, yeah.
sensuality, but also like friction. I love that. It encompasses
And
all.
it's like if you're not really paying attention, the color is the same. When it's ground up, it's the same. It's like very similar to what oregano might look like.
Hmm.
So
Amazing. Maya said something here in the chat. I wrote something with the first question you asked about our heart, and here it is. I see my heart reflected in the night sky, full of craters, but still radiating. Its silvery glow kisses the palms of open leaves and falls gently into the dirt, sinking between soil and settling atop the night, a silken blanket. Mingling with the dirt are many beetles and worms, spiders and snakes adorning the earth, all wrapped in silk, all luminescence. No organism without the light of my breast. I watch them die slowly with time, guiding the souls who get lost in the night. I call them to rest and lay them on my chest. Come to me, children. I'll hold you tonight. Where will we go? They will just want to know. Nowhere. Just lay in the light. Wow. Amazing.
mm, beautiful.
Yeah, so beautiful. David says, farms with animals have unique smells you don't encounter in an urban environment or even in a rural environment that does not include farm animals. Some of these smells are pleasant, others are not, but there's no ignoring them. Yasser says, I can't imagine mint instead of the original leaves. Ava says, I stuck with the idea of the attempt and oh wait, hold on. And courage. My courage is a young splash in a vast ocean. A small wake makes a tidal wave. Shanali, I happen to have just grabbed a cold drink. I can't drink Coke anymore. It's too sweet. It sticks to my tongue, coats my mouth. But soda water dashed with Coke explodes on my tongue. Bubbles prickle and dance. I'm scrolling back to it because something came up. The citrus tart of the Coke sparkles, soothed by cinnamon warmth, wow, haunted by a whisper of caramel. Wow, so sensuous. Rachel, the smell wasn't flowery. She would never have stood for that. It was ever present in my youth, hovering in the foyer, the kitchen, her bedroom, long after she had left to go adulting. Wow. It had depth, history. I could imagine that queens would wear this scent. Perhaps this one had made, um, perhaps one had it made just for her, signifying her uniqueness in the world. When the queen was gone, her subjects might seek it on the wind, forever disappointed. I am a seeker as well. The only place I find it now is in a small bottle that I found on her dresser, a dresser sold with her other belongings, to be opened with yearning in those times when I needed to find her. Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how perfume is is transformed with the chemistry of a body into something new as well. So there's like a distinction. And when the bottle is all that you have left, it's like a piece of something more complex that the poem approaches. It's so beautiful, Rachel. And Shonali says it made her think of her grandmother's perfume bottles. Oh, it's lovely.
Like the
Wow.
ones with the puffs. You remember those perfume bottles?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she had that.
Wow, really?
Mhm.
Perfume bottles are a thing, like collecting them and there's so many gorgeous ones. Yeah. Exactly. The cut glass bottles. Yeah. Um, do you want to move on to the next slide? I'm seeing that we have only 6 minutes, so we have to curate where we're going, Kafa. And I'm thinking maybe of skipping these more theoretical ideas and going to the latter part where you choose, but I'm thinking maybe we should go to the end part because 6 minutes is six
Okay,
minutes. Yeah.
yeah, I agree because I do want to get to the poetry at the end.
Yes.
So I'll just take a minute for this because I feel like that's really connected.
Okay.
Um, and I think a lot of this has been said, and I think intuitively we all feel that this is part of identity work and reclaiming space in places where we have either been erased or ignored. And it allows us to enter an ambiguous space, which is okay because the unknowing is part of our lived experience, that this connection is part of our lived experience because it also allows for us to create that relationship between us and the unknown. And it's okay that we don't always arrive at answers, and that is not the expectation of living and being a human. Um, but when we talked about voice, I think a lot of this is important. The ethical memory of witnessing, which is something that's really important right now in this period of time that we're living in. The urgency of survival that comes through in poetic musings and murmurations, the spiritual function of healing, the much deeper function of why we write, to heal some things that are within us. And then that wonder that compels human beings to write at all, that has to, I don't ever think that wonder can be stolen from our human experience. And the pause allows us to discover on that white canvas that we talked about earlier.
Mm.
I'll I just want to say that there was a survey that said that 86% of students are using AI in their writing. And funnily enough, 53 also within the same study said that they are not sure if the the answers are correct, but they're using them anyway. And that I felt like there's going to be answers and prompt answers that will not reflect our humanity at all at some point, right? Down generations of people. So this pause is so intentional to regaining and reclaiming space because there's so much trauma that lives in that reclamation and that it needs to be acknowledged. And I think that's the role of the writer in society to keep reclaiming that pain and that suffering as placemaking.
Mm.
Skip or cute, go to next.
We skip because I think the ending of
Yeah.
we're
Okay.
doing Darwish, right? Yeah. Or something else. But I think ending with a poem is the right way to go.
So, because I can never choose one thing, but I wanted to give voices to people who are using poems as testimony. And all of these writers are currently living in Gaza. Um, I'll just point your direction towards this one. This was a last post, Instagram post by someone who was murdered. It reads, "If you receive news of my killing, do not come to my farewell unless I am whole body as you knew me. A face with a name that can be kissed, a warm hand that can be held. I don't want my body to be something else in your memory. I want the soil of this country to hold me in the ground, whole."
Mm.
The unintentional poetic form that testimony is taking place in Gaza is, in my generation, unseen. And I'm sure in so many areas of conflict and turmoil, this is also the case. And then I have right here, comes just from the description of Poet Gaza Society. That's an organization that is retrieving all this poetry from Gaza, people living in Gaza at the moment. My journey of writing and sharing poetry during genocide in Gaza has been deeply impactful, filled with loss and sorrow as I navigate feelings of dislocation. While I write, I face the darkness surrounding my thoughts and also receive poems from fellow poets in our community, which I edit and translate. This shared sorrow transcends words, revealing a profound pain that language cannot fully express. Our grief feels boundless, requiring a vast expanse to contain it. As myriad streams of sadness course through us, hindering the articulation of our feelings, poetry becomes a space where we attempt to convey the struggles we face, particularly for ourselves and the poets in our community. After all we went through, it felt like we'd lost our voices. So poetry became our way to speak. Sometimes I'm mad at language and myself, but I keep writing. And so do the other poets around here. They write even though they're displaced, hungry, grieving, scared, and facing death, knowing this might be it, but if we die, our poetry lives on. I thought that was a beautiful way to connect everything we were talking about.
Yes. I think it's it's a powerful way to close, because in essence, poetry can give us a kind of life beyond our life. Um, Words do matter, and words have, power beyond the grave. And, you know, it's interesting to notice how in all political regimes, it's the poets that they come down so hard on. I think there's something to that. So thank you to everyone for spending this hour with us, just sort of taking that pause to think about how important poetry is and the poetic impulse is to living um, a meaningful human life. We are not machines, and we shouldn't trick ourselves into be acting like them. Kefah, do you want to just talk a little bit about these resources as we close out? If anyone has to leave at the top of the hour, we understand that. I just want to say that. Okay.
So these are just a few websites that directly engage with poets from Gaza. This one is a collection of Black resistance poetry that I thought was really well done. Some of them, a lot of the work from the Gaza poets, you'll notice that the poet is no longer with us. They have died in the genocide. But these are great resources to kind of connect to the embodiment of poetry, that human worth transcends what's just written on a paper, because language is more than just language. It's the embodiment of experience and asserting our placement in society. So these are amazing resources. I mean, obviously not enough, but a really good place to start.
I'm just reacting to some of the lovely things in the chat. First of all, David just says Emerson, Thoreau, Dickinson, Darwish, Gibran, and other transcendental poets would love our discussion. And that makes me feel like I love that sort of intergenerational, intercultural, beyond the grave kind of conversation we're having. I love that, just invoking that, David. So thank you. And then I found a bakery that serves Mamul pastries here in Vermont, and he's heading there on his bike after our session. I just love the idea of, that little snapshot in my mind gives me joy. And then who needs an anthology of poetry after copying the chat in this Zoom session? We're all poets, holding so many universes in our hearts. And if we take the pause to just bring forth these moments here and there, they heal us. And I think that's an important thing to never forget in this lifetime we've been blessed with.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Mia and Kefah, for that wonderful session.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you,
so
everyone.
insightful and so thoughtful. I'm gonna actually stop the recording. So if you want to say something off recording, so we can do that.
Thank you, Yasser.